Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the Board of County Commissioners. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing on our agenda, we have Mr. Todd Cordrey. Did I say that right? I always goof up Todd, but Superintendent with Mancos, RE6 School District, and we're going to have a conversation today about fee schedules and an increase. So come on down.
Good morning or afternoon.
Good
I guess it is.
afternoon.
Something like that.
I'm used to being here in the mornings.
Yeah, I know, but
How are you today?
we're great.
So I have the Mancos School District Superintendent Todd Cordrey here, and I guess they have done well, I guess I can let him explain. Basically, they reevaluated their fees in lieu of land for the school district on subdivision plats, and they've come up with some updated figures and taken it through the school board. But I'll let Mr. Cordrey explain the whole process, because we weren't involved until just a month or so ago when they had adopted this, or
Okay.
proposed to adopt it for the fee schedule.
So Todd, this fee schedule then is for the unincorporated part of the county?
That's correct.
So within the city limits, that's a totally jurisdiction that's not within our realm.
That's correct.
So I'll just stop right there. I'll let you do your presentation, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds great. So the Mancos School District, through statute, has the ability to receive a fee in lieu of land dedication for when people move into our school district boundary area. And this fee hasn't been adjusted since 2006, 17 years ago. And so we took a look at it, being that we're in this tight economic time where we're trying to increase our compensation to our staff. And so we looked at it and we said, well, $276 is pretty low. What's our neighboring school districts charging? And we looked at Dolores School District and Cortez School District and Durango and Dove Creek and Bayfield and Ignacio, and they were all substantially higher. So we said, well, let's go ahead and have some public comment on this. And we had a variety of meetings with the public, and we brought this up in a couple of board meetings. And as administration, I presented to the Board of Education that we have a modest increase relative to where our surrounding school districts are, and we raised the fee up to $550. So when someone goes to build a property, they have a school fee that used to be $276 going forward. We'd like to see that at $550. That'd be the same within the Mancos town boundary area with the town, as well as the county area is what we propose through with this conversation today. Does all that make sense?
So it does. So it's taxes in lieu of, or basically property in lieu of, or payment in lieu of, I think is how they,
Fees,
trying to think
yeah,
of how the language
fees in
is,
lieu
but
of land.
fees in lieu of. So is that per acre? Is that set per lot? Is it set per development?
Per
What is it set
residential
for?
dwelling. Per residential permit. So if a person were to subdivide, that creating a new residential dwelling, this would come into a place. Or if a person were to build a residential dwelling, then this would, on a new piece of property, even if it was a 40-acre property or a 160-acre property, it'd just be one residential dwelling. And so this fee would come into place. And that's the current situation. What we're just adjusting is
Just the
the
fee.
cost, the fee, yes. And we're taking it up to, we propose to take it up to $550 per residential unit.
And so I read the statute a little differently. I think that this
Okay.
is a subdivision regulation, and so I think it kicks in at the point of a subdivision, not necessarily just a building per se. That doesn't pop out in the statute to me. I don't know. It would really be when property is subdivided, that's when this would kick in, not when a residence is built.
That's typical.
Right,
like
a
within the
residence would
city
be
of
more like our
Cortez.
road impact fee, that the county charges.
Right, so if a 2-lot moderate or a 20-lot major, the fees would have to be paid for at that point in time, correct?
Correct.
Is that how you see it too, Ian?
Yes, exactly.
So it'd be, you're wanting $550 a lot per whatever it is,
Yes, sir.
in the
So,
RE6 district.
Yes, sir.
So how many developments have we had in the RE6 district in the last 5 years?
I do not know.
I know we just
Any idea?
completed a 5-lot, earlier this year.
I was gonna say, I know we did a 2-lot right off of 140, or I'm sorry, 160, because we had a lot of conversation on the access.
And there was a 4-lot about 3 years ago.
So
It
not-
just depends, because it's the whole Mancos address. So
Right.
you're clear up 184 halfway
Yep.
to Dolores, so
Yep.
but,
Anything in the RE6 school district.
right.
Don, what is the comparison between these fees and the fees that the other districts are charging at this point?
Well, and it's kind of confusing because the way it's kind of been run by the school districts, when I started, everybody, even though, I think the language was per lot of a subdivision, they were all collecting per plat. Then in 2021, RE1 reevaluated all their housing cost, fees, went through the whole study, and they amended theirs, or they revised their fees to, instead of having single-family, multifamily, mobile home, because they had 3 different categories, they combined it into just one fee, but they did it per plat. So it's like $1,043 and change per plat. Dolores and Mancos were charging $276 for Mancos and $535 for Dolores per plat, up until I think this year Mancos started charging per lot again. That 5-lot subdivision that was done earlier this spring, they did get charged the $276 per lot. So the wording, I guess, I mean, to do apples to apples, there's a big difference if you're doing $550 per lot, or if you're doing like $1,043 per plat, which could cover up to, however many lots in a subdivision, or a single lot. But it's kind of how the school districts have handled it, because we don't collect the money. All we do is make sure the surveyors have the right school district signature line, and the school districts each take care of collecting the fees and signing the plats.
But ultimately, this is a regulation that's adopted by this board. What jumps out to me is, in terms of adopting these fees, we probably ought to be consistent, district to district.
But it doesn't sound like they're anywhere close to being. They're not close from what you just described. If it's per plat or per lot, that's 2 totally different things.
Exactly.
It would be odd to have it, I guess my point is, it would be odd to have it per plat in the Dolores district, for instance, and then per lot in the Mancos district, and something else in Cortez. I mean, maybe this is a larger conversation that we've got to have to try to make it somewhat consistent between these 3 districts, because I mean, as far as I can tell, I don't really see a good logical reason to have different fees between the districts. Maybe somebody does, but it just doesn't quite make sense to me.
Can you maybe elaborate on that, Todd? Is there a reason why you guys are different between all three school districts?
No, I have no idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah, this is all kind of a newer topic to us. It was, as we were starting to figure out ways to pay, minimum wage for our non-teaching staff and to find ways to pay our teaching staff and a wage where we could keep them in our community and continue to provide high level of education. We noticed that this fee had not been adjusted for 17 years, which really just didn't seem appropriate considering inflation and the cost of housing increase. So we approached it just from a perspective of how does this impact Mancos School District, and we saw that this fee was at $276, and so a reasonable increase over 17 years we thought was $550, and that was the extent of our analysis.
So would it hurt to have a conversation? I almost think we almost have to have you school districts in here once about every 2 months anymore, it seems like. But that's not going to happen, and I realize it. But would it hurt to have a conversation with the other two superintendents to say, hey, maybe we should reevaluate this totally because this board is going to have to approve it for all three of them? Maybe it's time for an adjustment in all three collectively, I think, like
Well-
our attorney said. Is that?
I mean, just in looking at some of the documentation, Don provided me with the analysis and the justification that Cortez used to come to their fees. That seemed pretty thorough to me. Don, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the time they did it, they went back and they looked at housing costs and land costs, and I think they probably referenced statute on kind of how calculations were done or how the formula was used previously to come to their new calculation. And from talking with Mr. Archibek, he was the finance guy in charge of that. They wanted to simplify it, get rid of different types of structures, just have it per plat. So each plat, they're all the same. It's one fee when they get it signed.
So a 2-lot plat would be the same as a 20?
Correct.
I'm not sure
That's a little odd to me.
Yeah, that doesn't,
Yeah,
So, I mean,
I
at
don't
that
like
point,
that.
it gets skewed considerably. We don't typically see that many lots in a subdivision, but it can happen.
You know,
right, but it doesn't seem fair if I'm only splitting my 10 acres into 2 5s,
Mhm.
and it's still a $1,100 fee, and a guy's doing 10 lots, and it's still the same fee. That doesn't seem
Right.
quite fair to the little guy or to the little lot.
And see,
Well, and then from the district or the school district, we'd be looking at it like, what's the impact on the school district? And if there's 20 dwellings being built, that's going to have a far more substantial impact on the school district than just one unit being built.
And I understand that, obviously, but not every lot is going to have any impact on the school district.
right.
Right.
I mean,
It
that's
would just
a
be an aggregate
crapshoot.
sort of basis, but probably, it's probably close to every residential house would probably have somewhere between 0.5 to 1.0 students within the school district. That's probably the range that we would see.
Thoughts?
well, I was trying to remember because when this thing started, when I was commissioner here before, and this whole deal, and they came in and they justified their original cost, but I was thinking that it was supposed to be per lot back then. For every lot was supposed to be
Well, it is in
charged.
Mancos. That's what he's saying. It's $276 per lot now. You're wanting to increase it to 550.
That's correct.
It sounds like Cortez was the one that departed from the per lot measurement, and they went to the per plat
To
idea.
the per plat idea.
Which, I mean, certainly is within their purview. It doesn't have to be even between the three districts. That's not a statutory requirement. It just to me, it would make sense to be somewhat consistent.
Yeah.
And again, Dolores hasn't updated theirs since 2008.
Okay.
And until Cortez did theirs, it was like 2007, so everybody kind of had done them around the same time frame and then hadn't for a long time.
And I mean, Commissioner, you do bring up a good point. This did go to public hearing in Mancos, and there was an opportunity for comment, and so this is what came out of it. And so, perhaps this is a situation where Mancos has taken the bull by the horns, and they've made their proposal, and we can go with it. It doesn't have to be even.
Right.
It just seems, conceptually to me, it just
Well,
seems odd that we'd be.
So what were your public comments? I
Yeah.
mean, because that's a 100% increase, basically. You're $2 off 100%.
Right, yeah, 100% increase over 17 years. So a rate of increase of probably about 6%, which is lower than the rate of increase for real estate over that period of time. And then, so that was part of it. But really what was driving the conversation is in Montezuma County, we simply cannot afford to pay our staff. And that's from the kitchen staff all the way to our teaching staff. So what was driving this conversation was how do we maintain a high-quality educational program in Montezuma County? And so we are looking at every opportunity to increase compensation to staff. And frankly, this would not have a big impact
No.
on that. But we're at the point of being very consistent and thorough across the board. And so it doesn't make sense that this would not be adjusted in 17 years. So that was frankly the public comment and the rationale around it.
So in your public comment, I mean, 50-50 split, pro and con, I mean, what
Oh,
was?
no, unanimous across the board.
Okay.
There was like no dissenting ideas, and it included, property owners, renters, parents, senior citizens. It was a pretty diverse group of public. It wasn't just what you could see in some smaller communities where it was just the staff that would show up. It was several meetings, and these meetings are ongoing. In fact, the next meeting is August 4th, where we continue to tackle this issue of how do we afford to have quality staff in Montezuma County.
I mean, to me, even at 550, if you have 20 lots a year out there, it's 10, 11 grand. It's not significant to anything. So, if they've already done their public comments, and it's only affecting one school district, RE6.
And it puts it almost exact as what Dolores is currently.
Yeah,
At 535 per lot.
I don't have any issues with it.
I guess part two, or the next chapter of that discussion, is they have a program for every 3 years for it to continue to increase.
That's not, that was the initial consideration,
Oh.
so that did go away.
Oh, okay.
So it's just left here. It didn't continue where it would be adjusted every 3 years.
So you can
we-
reevaluate it at that
Yes,
time.
we're going to be able to evaluate it in whatever time frame.
Oh,
So
fair-
it's just
fair
set at
enough.
550 right now.
Okay. Question?
Oh, no
I don't
problem.
have any more.
No, I know.
Get it all squared away.
Okay, I mean, I think it
Well, gentlemen,
makes sense to me.
I do appreciate your time today, and thank you for considering this, and as we continue to move forward with it. I did speak with the administration in the town of Mancos, and they're very comfortable with this as well.
Okay,
Great.
all right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for your time, I appreciate it.
Yep,
Nice to see
have
you
a great
again.
day.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Next up, we'll have Ms. Morris talk to us about transportation. We have 3 different items we're going to discuss. First of all, the fixed route request for proposals.
So you said the first one we're going to do is the
Fixed route.
fixed route. Okay.
Request for proposals.
Okay, so, yeah, this is just the fixed, the request for proposals for the feasibility studies, so that we can get the fixed route up and going, hopefully. I did adjust the dates from what I sent you because they were, this was done, a little while back, so I did adjust them. I will send that out to you guys, but that's all that changed is the dates,
Okay.
so. And I would like to put it on the county website, and I would also, I'm gonna send it to CASTA, Ann at CASTA, because she can get it out to the transit, network, so. That's what I want to do, get that going.
And then this fixed route we've been talking about now for
I know.
several years.
I know,
Yeah.
yes.
Gotta
So.
love it. The speed of how we move.
I'm hoping to have the
Um,
fixed route, the feasibility studies done fairly quickly. Let's see, I did put, so I put out 7/14 for the RFP issue so that you guys have time to sign it and we can put it up. And then questions, the deadline I moved to August 2nd. So basically, the final decision for who gets the contract would be by November,
Okay.
so.
Questions? I think
No.
this one we've discussed to death.
I know.
All right. Our Cortez de Rico IGA.
Okay, so that one, I changed a few of the dates as well because, I did notice there's one on the front that says June 7th. We're kind of past that. But this one, they did accept the changes, so they're just waiting on a signature from you guys, and then they will sign it and get this going on there. And I think their next board meeting's next week,
Okay.
I think. So.
And the change that we made with this was just to get the payment up front,
Yeah.
Okay.
as requested by the
Yeah.
board. That's the only
Right.
substantive change that was made.
Okay.
Right.
Any questions on this one, guys?
No.
I think we've kind of beat this one to death, too.
We have.
Just so long as we don't have to change the year, we can just change the date.
I know. Well, on the RFP, I had to change the actual year because by the time we get that done and get it, back. And then so the next one would be the vehicles.
Purchase of a van.
Right, the purchase of a van. So what I did was I did a quote through a dealership in Denver that, and I don't have that, where's that other page?
Dang, you broke my neck.
So, yeah, that one. Okay, so I did that through them. I did it for just a 14-passenger van without any wheelchair accessibility, just because the one that we are getting eventually from CDOT will have 3 wheelchairs, if you saw that on the other. I brought that quote too to show you what it was as far as pricing.
And these are all funded basically through CDOT.
Yes.
So all of our grant funding that we get specifically, what is the cost of this van? And this is a 9-passenger, right?
The one from CDOT?
No, this one.
Oh,
The
that
one
one
that we're talking
is,
about.
that one's a 14-passenger.
Oh, 14.
Yeah. Yep. 14-passenger. Wait, that's. Is that the CDOT one?
Looks like a sheriff's car. By the time you get it upfit.
I know. And this one, the one from CDOT will actually have the wrap on it. They're just still trying to figure out with Ford the actual cost. So the one from CDOT is probably a little less than I'll be paying because they have not updated that yet. But the 14-passenger, yeah, see that one?
And I
Yeah,
want
they're
to say,
both Ford,
all of the funding is in there anyway.
right.
Basically, these are part of the grants that
We have the
Jennifer
money
gets
for,
that
right?
we roll in there for those. Basically, all we're doing is approving, not
Letting me
today,
actually cut
Yeah.
the check
discussing
for,
just this van.
right. I just brought the CDOT one to kind of compare so you guys knew, what
Yep.
they run through CDOT versus, And actually, I think the one I priced out was less, because it doesn't have the wheelchair stuff in it.
Right. Questions?
I don't have any.
Okay, then
Okay.
I will see you guys tomorrow, and I'll update the couple things that I needed to and
Okay,
get those to you.
sounds good.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Next, an Airbnb discussion with Chrissy Faraci?
Faraci, but close
Faraci,
enough.
okay.
Hi, thank you for having us. Can you hear me okay?
You bet.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again. My name is Chrissy Faraci, and I'm a local government consultant for Airbnb based here in Colorado. We noticed that there was some pending discussion on short-term rental, and I reached out to County Manager Travis, and he asked us to give a short presentation today about some basic modeling or best practices as you consider moving forward and potentially setting up a regulatory framework. So with that, I'm going to introduce the real expert, Danny Badaki with Airbnb, and we have a short presentation for you guys, if that's okay.
You bet.
Would it
Thank
be
you.
possible to get screen sharing capabilities from one of the admins on the Zoom call? Sweet. Thank you very much. Just give me one moment here. All right. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you for having us. My name is Danny Baldacchi. I'm on the Airbnb North American Public Policy team, and I represent several states in the West. I've only been in this role a couple of months, so I apologize in advance if I don't have answers to some questions, but I will definitely work with folks on following up to get you those. If you don't mind, I'll just ask that we save our questions to the end, and I'll run through this presentation and then open it up. So just quickly, what we're going to get into. Here's a quick overview. First, I just want to talk about who Airbnb is and what we do. Second, get into our host community, who they are in your county and who they are in Colorado at large. And the third and last thing is just quickly running through basic guidelines and regulations on short-term rentals that we have seen be really effective from a compliance standpoint in other places. So quick overview of the company. Airbnb was founded in 2007 when two hosts, our founders, welcomed 3 guests into their San Francisco apartment for a design conference. At that time, many of the hotels were booked or really expensive because of the conference, so people traveling to the city were looking for alternatives. Over the course of that first booking, the hosts got to know their guests, showed them around their city, introduced them to their friends, and got to know each other. And honestly, at this point, I've heard have stayed lifelong friends. Those first guests literally slept on air mattresses, hence the creation of the name Airbnb. Today, there are more than 4 million hosts worldwide who have welcomed more than 1 billion guests into their homes. Let's get into the meat of it. So on the trust and safety front, let me take you through a couple of the tools that we have implemented to keep our hosts, guests, and the communities in which they live and stay more safe and secure. So first is the neighborhood support line. This is a staffed hotline with an actual human on the other end. I'm sure that's a novel concept, but it's true. It's proven to be an important tool in our effort to combat unauthorized gatherings and enforce our ban on party houses. A little bit more on that later. In 2019, we established our law enforcement portal, which provides a secure channel for law enforcement to submit valid legal requests for information, track requests, and receive updates. I'm happy to provide more information about that to anyone at the county a little bit later, if they would like it. Next, we have our global ban on parties. This is something that began during the pandemic as a safety precaution, but has become a standard practice. Our policies ban disruptive parties and unauthorized gatherings in our listings. The policy includes consequences for guests who attempt to violate these rules, varying from account suspension to full removal from the platform. I have found that folks in general don't know necessarily that we have a party ban, and we can't speak for every other short-term rental operator. but just a little bit from us. And to that end, we have risk detection tools, which are innovative, safety-focused technology aimed at helping reduce the chance of disruptive parties and help hosts protect against neighborhood disruption, keeping the peace, as it were. It includes a first-of-its-kind reservation screening technology, and heightened interventions during certain times of the year. So like the 4th of July weekend we just had, our people are on higher alert, looking to basically break up disruptive parties before they happen. And this last point, and I'm sure one that is important to, across the state, but particularly to you all as well, is education on wildfire risks. We provide education to our hosts on preparing both their homes and their guests for wildfires, as well as measures to ensure guests understand fire safety, particularly in fire season. But we are continuing to look for ways to partner on this issue and always looking for ways to improve. So I encourage your suggestions on that front. So getting into our host community a little bit. I'm going to try to run quickly through this section because the slides are fairly self-explanatory. The vast majority of hosts in your county list a single property, and their average earnings over the past 12 months are about $11,000. In the state, 45% of our hosts say that the money they earned hosting on our platform helped them stay in their homes. 67% say that hosting helped them meet the rising cost of living, and an additional 42% of our hosts in Colorado have a total household income of under $100,000. Getting into the last section, which is just our basic guidelines on regulations. So number one for us is pretty clear. It's an easy and accessible registration process. Hosts should be able to complete every step of the application process quickly, easily, and online. And we found that compliance is much higher when hosts only need to complete one application that is not contingent on any other licenses or application processes. Many of our most successful markets, as far as compliance is concerned, have registration processes that are 100% online. So that is the model we would like to follow. Next is automatic renewal. Registration should be automatically renewed by the local government unless the host decides to stop hosting or that particular host has received multiple violations of local code. So really, cutting down on the work that needs to be done for renewal unless there is a bad actor or someone decides to stop hosting. Next is reasonable fees. So all hosts should pay a reasonable fee for registration fees, and the requirements therein should be proportional to the type of accommodation being offered. Examples of other fees, Denver, for example, has a $50 application fee, a $100 renewal fee. Portland, Oregon has a $170 application fee. It depends on the jurisdiction, but something that's reasonable for folks and doesn't deter hosts from hosting is preferable. And then lastly, our onboarding period. Whenever a new system is introduced, we look to have a reasonable period to allow existing hosts to get registered and get compliant before governments begin enforcement against anyone who's unregistered. So our ideal situation would be 120 days until enforcement begins from the time that legislation is passed. So again, thank you all for having me, and I'm going to stick around and answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions?
I don't have any, really.
Okay. I guess I guess I'll start then. Danny or Chrissy, whoever can answer this, but right now we don't regulate Airbnbs at all in Montezuma County, the unincorporated part of Montezuma County. So I'm not, that's kind of what you are offering, a way to regulate Airbnbs within the unincorporated part of the county. I think the municipalities do it all, and they do it themselves. But at this point in time, I don't think we have any issues at all. I'm not, I guess I don't think we have any concerns in the unincorporated part of the county. I think they're all within the municipalities of the county. and they all have regulated it, Dolores, Mancos, and Cortez, but obviously we have some in the unincorporated part of the county, but not enough to really worry about at this point in time unless I'm,
I mean, I haven't heard anything from this board about any sort of intention to regulate Airbnbs.
No. Did you guys get information like that from somewhere?
Yeah, we,
Yeah, go ahead, Chrissy, sorry.
yeah, we saw an item on one of your agendas recently about contemplating regulations or looking at regulations post House Bill 1287, which passed this year, which allows counties to now regulate short-term rentals. And so we're going throughout the state and presenting to counties, to kind of provide, as I said earlier, some preferred regulatory framework that seems to be works really well across the country and here in Colorado for those counties that do regulate.
so let me ask you a question because I remember that passing, but isn't that mostly in the Front Range where they're having all of these, or ski towns? Really? Telluride, Summit County?
Yeah,
I mean,
so let me just summarize to say, basically, if you aren't having issues, that's great. I want to introduce myself as a point of contact should issues arise or should you want to continue this conversation further. Again, maybe this presentation was a little premature and maybe we misunderstood, but in an instance in which you all are considering figuring out how to further regulate in the unincorporated county, I can be a point of contact and also provide, I guess all of this is to say that we don't need to reinvent the wheel as far as these regulations are concerned. There's a lot of precedent out there, a lot of things that have worked really well, a lot of things that have not, and I am just making myself a resource for if that comes up in the future. But I apologize if we misunderstood your immediate need on this issue.
No worries. You don't have to apologize for anything, but yeah, I'll keep you as a point of contact, both of you, Danny and Chrissy, but at this point in time, I'm looking to my left and my right, and I don't think we have any issues, so I don't think we're looking at any kind of regulations out in the unincorporated part of the county at this time.
Well, and I don't think either one of these folks is advocating for any regulations. They're
Yeah.
just saying that if regulations,
of contact.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I guess that was it. So,
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us and enjoy the rest of your week.
all right,
I
thank you.
I will send my email out to everyone at this meeting, so everyone has my contact. Thank you very much.
Thank
bet.
you. Okay, Miss Anderson or Loving or Miss, what do you want, what do you want to be today?
I don't know. So we have two things. First thing is this,
First thing on the agenda is the U.S. Forest Service.
yeah, the Forest Service.
Noxious weeds.
So this is an agreement we've had pretty much every year. We used to do the Forest Service roads, and then we kind of switched gears to help them do treatments of our locally A-listed species. So in the last 2 years, we've been treating their diffuse and spotted knapweed over by Hay Camp and the McPhee Marina. So this will be our third treatment of that. Hopefully, we'll see minimal weeds, but they're requesting us to increase our previous agreement by $6,000 to accommodate those treatments this year.
Is that covering it?
That's my
Yeah.
question.
Yes.
That's,
Yeah.
okay. It's covering it and we have the capacity to do it?
Yes. Well, and then I would also request, if this is approved, to increase my general fund herbicide line item by $6,000 so I can purchase the herbicide for this. So I don't know if you need to increase the revenue side too, revenue by $6,000, then expenses by $6,000, or we can just talk to Phaedra about that, but that would be the next step after approving this. And then while I'm on that note, we did get a herbicide rebate in January or February in the amount of $994.56, and I'm also requesting an increase in my road department herbicide expense line item by this amount so I can purchase herbicides in this amount.
How much was that, 900?
$994.56. So that's already been deposited January, February. So I'm requesting to be able to use that to purchase more herbicides.
And that's from the road department?
That'll go into the road department, yes.
You keep running out of ink for me.
Been writing too much. Question?
No, it's,
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, that one's super easy. So next you have Mr. Dobry with you, and we're gonna discuss
Is
Good
it gonna be
Neighbor
weird that I stand and you sit? Okay. I'm sitting all
Authority
day.
Grant application.
So this is actually a similar process to that, the grant that she just talked about, or the agreement.
Just a lot more paperwork, and thank God Robert's here because those BLM agreements just make my head explode.
Yeah, the BLM changed the way they do it. They now, you have to submit everything through grants.gov, through the large grant program that the federal government put together, or grant website. So this basically, we put together a proposal for 2 years. They reached out to Bonnie, the BLM reached out to Bonnie, said that they had $25,000 available. So I put together a program for 2 years. It's things that we're doing it's basically things that we're doing anyway and getting them to help reimburse us for some of those costs.
Yeah, so it's just managing the weeds alongside the county roads that go through the BLM.
Yeah.
Is that any kind of an increase at all, or is that the same funding, the $25,000?
It's the same. And I think they used to be 3-year agreements, but we're just saying 2 years.
Yeah, we put it as a 2-year agreement. It's possible that they may come back to us and say it has to be a 3-year agreement, but figured if we can put the proposal in as 2, it's a little more that way.
So the funds will reimburse all the herbicide and it will pay a portion of our labor.
Yeah.
To do that. In the past, it's just reimbursed herbicides, so at least this year we're adding the labor in to reimburse that.
Okay.
Because there's no match required, which is
Yeah,
nice.
no match required. The herbicide portion would be about $16,000 and the labor would be the rest, about
Okay.
$8,000.
8, 9. Questions, gentlemen?
no. Is that enough to do what needs to be done? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we already do it anyway, so this is just paying for it, which is
Just help to
nice.
pay for the
Yeah.
herbicide. $16,000 of herbicide is a,
I know the cost of
Bunch of
herbicides
money.
is nuts.
Everything's increasing, yeah.
It's way nuts.
okay.
Is that treating the Canyon of the Ancients part of the BLM or not?
Which road is that? Is that 12 or 10? Any county road that goes through the BLM, it'll cover.
Yeah, the way I wrote the proposal is basically that Bonnie would be able to identify the places that qualify, the BLM areas, and adjacent private lands. The idea is to keep weeds from passing from private to public and vice versa. So Bonnie would be able to decide prioritize what the most important 270 acres to treat over the 2-year period and go forward that way.
Okay,
Maybe we ought to start investing in goats,
lots of them.
lots of goats.
Yeah.
Keep them right out on the roadway, right? Yeah. Okay, all right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks.
And then lastly, we have a letter of support and LOS for an endangered fish recovery program, and I don't,
Is that,
Here's the letter, that's it. I haven't heard if anybody was coming or anything.
Gerald, do you know more about this?
Yes.
You're our,
I mean, I know about the whole program because at Southwest, we basically support this whole program and put money into it to keep this endangered species going. And it's been quite a while since it was renewed, and they need to let it's expiring this year, so it needs to be renewed in order to keep this endangered species going as far as the suckers down. Mainly it's on the San Juan. That's what it amounts to. Basically, that's where the biggest part of the work is done, is down on the San Juan. I'm sure that's what this one's, but there's a Senate bill spot, getting put through too to renew this program.
Yeah, so it's all Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can review this. We don't have to obviously make any decisions today, but you do Southwest, the board is also
Yeah,
supporting that
yes.
and have sent an LOS. So just an LOS has no financial
No, absolutely not.
contribution, nothing to it.
This is just a letter to,
It's just an LOS.
Support
Yep.
to renew the program.
Okay.
And it's something that if we can keep these fish viable so that they don't get on that endangered list,
Yep.
we're way better off as far as our water, everything goes. So,
The opposite direction of
and
endangered.
it seems to be working.
Okay.
They've actually made some real progress with the program, so it seems to be working. I think it's something we should support.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
I don't.
All right. Well, then we have come to the end of our workshop. Thank you all, and we'll see you tomorrow.